All right, so this week we're going to talk about feedback. It takes lots of different forms. It can be feedback, student evaluations, surveys, peer review, evaluations, all that stuff. But basically, it's different ways of getting information from people and information about what works in your class and how you can improve it. All right, so what are some different methods of feedback? Some of them you've already done. A self-review, you've looked at it, you've tried to see what works, you've kind of evaluated it. One key thing about this is make sure that you go through the student view. Go into settings and hit student view, because a lot of you have done things where you did a test that you thought was good, and then when you look at it from the student view, you hadn't quite set it up right. So make sure you go through that and make sure that everything works good, everything works the way it's supposed to. Okay. Other ways that you can do it, you can have a peer review, meaning having someone else look at it. You can use us, the Online Learning Center, and have us look at and evaluate your class and give you feedback. You can use different quality rubrics out there. There's a lot of them out there, but the most common one by far, and the one that Bates recommends, is Quality Matters. And that's just giving you a rubric to actually go through and formally evaluate your class. And then finally, but probably most importantly, is student evaluations, because obviously your opinion is good, theories are good, my opinions are good, but when push comes to shove, what do the students say about your class? Is it easy to navigate? Can they find the information? Do they feel like they were evaluated on the stuff that they learned in class? Items like that. So that student evaluations is obviously critical. Okay. Another way of doing it is a peer review. That's something we're doing today. The first and most important thing about a peer review is find someone competent. I put it in quotes. I don't mean that to be ugly, like teachers are incompetent or something like that, but someone who can actually give you some advice. Someone who's taught an online class before, someone who understands your subject field if you're asking for help specifically in that area. So in other words, someone who can actually look at your course and give you some constructive feedback. All right, it's a second set of eyes. This is important because the fact is, when you look at something, you look at what you think it is and what you want it to be, not as it actually is. I think all of us have had the experience where we typed up a document and someone looked at it and said, "Did you read this?" And we thought it was perfect, and we realized we're missing words or stuff was out of order because, again, we read what we thought we typed rather than what we actually did. So getting that second set of eyes, looking at your class and saying, "This looks good," or "I was confused by that." Okay, the third thing is constructive compliments and criticism. So it was great, it was awesome, oh, it's fine, or even it's bad. That doesn't help in any way, shape, or form. So you're looking for someone and you're asking them to give you constructive compliments. Like, "This was laid out really well. I was able to easily access the information," or "I really liked the videos that you made. It was much more interesting than just reading text." So giving you constructive compliments or constructive criticisms. "I tried to submit my assignment. I couldn't figure out how to do it," or "I kind of got lost in your class," or "I was confused by the way it was laid out," or even something like the font was too small or it was confusing. Okay, so that you want someone to give you stuff that you can actually be actionable, where you can make it better as you go through. Okay, the final thing to say is it's non-binding, unless it's something that, like accessibility, and we say it's not meeting federal standards. Obviously, the government gets the final say on that. But other than that, you're getting advice which you can then take or not take. I can give you a whole list of ways that I think you can improve the class, and you can look at a list of 10 and go, 8 of these I think are stupid. That's not the way I like to teach. And it's fine to do that. These are suggestions, not mandates. You want to have a class that you're happy with and that you think reflects your style best. Let's talk about Quality Matters. You hear this all the time. You hear it from the president. You hear about QM. What exactly is it? Well, we're going to walk through it in a second. Let's give you an overview. First of all, it's a very high level, so it's probably not now for any of you. And I hope no one takes this as an insult, but the point is, it's for a class that you've taught, and you've taught several times, you've improved, you've looked at it, and you're pretty certain that it meets those standards. Now, you can absolutely start on the process today. In fact, hopefully, you have that QM workbook, and you can look at that and get some ideas right now. Okay? It's very structured peer review. You go through the checklist, people evaluate it. You have certain standards you have to meet, certain scores you have to meet. So it's not subjective, or it's as unsubjective as it can possibly be when you're talking about grading someone's class. Okay? And one thing to be aware of, you will have at least one subject matter expert, meaning there will be someone there who knows your field, and you will have at least one outsider, meaning someone outside of Bates. So that way you don't have just people who say, "Oh, this is the way Bates does it." You have people from other colleges who can say, "Hey, here's a different way of doing it. Have you considered this?" All right, so with QM, you have 8 general standards. I'm not going to read all these, but we're going to kind of go over how it starts big and then gets very granular, very finite. So here's 8 general standards. For example, what sort of instructional materials do you use? Do you offer learner support? Things like that. So these are big picture items just to get you thinking of, what are the different things that I need to have in my online course? Now let's take one of these and look at it a little more specifically. We're going to move to kind of the medium level. Okay, we're going to talk about learning objectives, and now you see if they're evaluating your learning objectives, you've got 5 specific standards, 43 total, but 5 in this clump. Okay, talking about learning objectives. You know, it says that they're measurable. It also says your course objectives are measurable. It also says that your unit or your module objectives are measurable and they're consistent. It says that the relationship between the learning objectives they're supposed to learn and what they're doing, the course activities, is clearly stated. In other words, here's why you're doing this. Okay, the learning objectives are suited to the level of the course. So you don't have a really complicated essay you're giving in an English 90. So things like that. So as you see, we're getting a little more granular here. All right. Now, if you want to ask, gosh, number 2.1 sounds interesting, or number 2.2 sounds interesting. How do I meet that? Well, that's where you get to the annotations, which are in your book, and it goes over exactly what they're talking about. Okay, I'm being a bit of a jerk here. I know we can't read that, but this is actually all the annotations for Standard 2.1. As you see, there's a lot there. Don't try and read this. We'll edit it in a second. But it gives you a whole list of here's how you meet the standards, here's what doesn't meet the standards, here's what the terms mean, here's some examples of it, all of that information. Okay, so this is still a little small, but I edited about half of it. Here's what Standard 2.1 says. So for example, it says, here's some examples of a measurable objective. Upon completion of the course, learners will be able to select appropriate tax strategies for different financial and personal situations. That is a very good objective. All right. It says it's met under the following circumstances, and you see that in the middle of the page. The course objectives or competencies are measurable, whether set by the institution or the instructor. And then underneath you say it's not met if there's no objectives or they're not measurable. So obviously that's the thing they're looking for. So you can't say things like the students will know this, because how can you measure it? Okay, so we have measurable objectives. So that's an example of it. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about real quickly is student feedback. All right, what is its purpose? Its purpose is to find out, when the rubber meets the road, what exactly do students think of my course? Again, it's great that you love your course. It's great that I love your course. It's great that QM loves your course. But we can all say it's great, and you give it to students, they go, blah. Okay, so we want to make sure that the students can navigate your course, that they feel that the assignments they're doing are worth their time and effort, that they feel that the course is graded fairly, all this information. So we want to capture that. We do provide you one in the template. It's a pretty extensive course evaluation. One thing I'll note on that is course evaluations for online courses are supposed to be longer. Because of the fact that you're not in the course, you're not seeing students eye to eye, a lot of times people won't say anything. Students aren't going to raise eyebrows at having a fairly long course evaluation, because they understand, at least most do, this is your one chance to really get some good feedback from them, more than, say, meeting after class and talking about something with someone. So it is a little long. If you haven't seen one before, don't freak out. It's supposed to be that way. And then finally, it is adjustable. The one that I gave you might not work for your class, or only half it may work. So feel free to delete, feel free to add, feel free to change things. Again, it's a template for you to get started with. All right, so you get all this information, you want to improve. Really, there's kind of 2 types of improvement. One is immediate. Someone says something like, the link didn't work, the font was too small. Well, great, go in and change it immediately. That's almost like a 24-hour thing. I should be able to do this right now. There's also long-term, like for example, if people said that there was no variety in the way you presented the information, you might not be able to fix that immediately, but you might make a mental note, or you might make a goal of over Christmas, or over spring break, or over the course of the next year, over summer, something like that. I'm going to add some videos, or I'm going to find some interactive material to use. So not all the feedback is stuff that you can act on immediately, and that's fine. Okay, that's to be expected. Remember, in the end, it's your class. It's organic, and it reflects where you're at right now, and that might be somewhere different a year or 2 from now.